This is the gearbox and transfer box that I'm going to put into Kermit. This is not the gearbox or transfer box that came out of Kermit. This is, well, I've just retrieved this from the back of the shed, not from the brambles, so obviously a precious thing. This is actually a factory rebuild gearbox. Rover Gold Seal factory rebuild. Obviously I've no idea when it was rebuilt by Rover, but hopefully they did a good job. This gearbox came from a Land Rover that I bought absolutely donkeys years ago and had to break for parts. Some of which are still out there, actually in the brambles. The transfer box, this bit, is something I actually rebuilt myself way back for a project that never went much further than that. So this is an Ashcroft high ratio transfer case, or transfer gears. This is the original one. So what they do is they send you a replacement casing, because it's a slightly different size, and a bunch of new gears. And I think I was supposed, well, I was supposed to send that one back. So that's there was probably £100 deposit I seem to remember for that, but I never got around to it. We'll have to take these mounts off and clean those up. They're going to go on here. But basically this means that the 4 high range gears are all higher, but the low range are unaffected. It's basically gives me 4th gear overdrive equivalent of in 4th gear, if that makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, the upshot is that this unit is almost ready to drop in. I'm going to clean it because it's, although I haven't left it outside for years, it's been at the back of the shed. It's covered in sawdust. I'll degrease and jet wash this and get these mounts off. That's next. Yeah, let's deploy the washing up brush. That'll do. I don't have the equipment, or to be quite honest, the patience to make it any better than that. I just wanted it to be a bit less filthy so it's more pleasant to handle on the workbench. But also for the future I can see any more oil leaks that come out of it and I can spot where they're coming from a bit easier. Now I should say at this point I don't actually know if this gearbox is any good. I mean, I know the transfer box is fine because I rebuilt that, and assuming I did a good job on it, which was so many years ago I can't actually remember, but assuming I did, that's fine. But the gearbox, I don't know. But worst comes to it, I've got Kermit's original gearbox, which was in good running order, so I can swap it if needs be. Let's get these mounts off. On these, I think. Those studs do not want to come out. Okay. That's the kitty. There we go. I found some engine mounts as well. Because the ones that came off the Range Rover are no good, they're completely incompatible with that chassis. These ones are off a tuner called the petrol engine. But it's the same, it's basically the same block. That's good, that's all for glassing then, so I'll do that tomorrow. Now before I can fit the clutch on here, I'm going to replace the rear crankshaft oil seal. Now I was umming and ahhing about this because, well, to be quite honest, it's a bit of a daunting thing. I've never done it before. basically I've got to remove this flywheel and this flywheel housing and get to the seal behind it. So, and there was no sign of leaking underneath the engine from the rear seal. So I was thinking, well, do I need to do it? But then I was looking at the state of the other seals that I've replaced, and the rubber is just so stiff and brittle that I pretty much decided to do it. And then I had a close look here. Might just be able to make out around this edge here little traces of oil that's been zipping out, sort of like a sunburst effect. So that indicates it's starting to leak. And there's also a bit of oil residue down here, so yeah, that confirms it. The seal in here has got to be changed. I reckon these bolts here, it's a job for this. I've now fired up the big compressor, so hopefully we'll get a bit more oomph out of this thing. That's more like it. Yeah. Cool. Try not to drop it. This is the back of the flywheel, and you can see from this angle those traces of oil that I was on about coming through the bolts, I think. And like I say, I think that would have become quite a significant problem pretty quickly. So I know the bolts have to be Loctited to get back together. Maybe whoever looked at this last, yeah, or the Loctite failed or whatever, I don't know. But this is the seal that I need to change inside here. What I'm going to do is take off the whole of the housings, undo these bolts, take this housing off because, well, apart from it's going to make it easier to sort out the seal, I need to drill and tap, well, I need to tap some of these holes and I need to drill through some other ones down at the bottom here to enable the gearbox to bolt up properly. Well, there's plenty of oil behind here. So what I don't know is whether that oil, all this oil that's here, has come up from a failing oil seal, this one, or it's come down from that massive leak that was at the back of the rocker cover. I don't suppose it matters too much. I'm going to replace all the seals. And this is intriguing. This is a lot of gold paint on this engine. I don't know if they came standard like that, because to me that would indicate a rebuild. Normally, gold paint. I'm not making that up. Check it out, it's sunny. I think this is the first bit of sun I've had since those tyres arrived. So I'm going to grab the opportunity and try and fit one. So these tyres have been sat in the sun since it came out about 2 hours ago. It hasn't really made much difference. I suppose it's mildly warm. So I've only got one wheel at the moment. Obviously the others are actually on Kermit. I suspect that these tyres are going to be way, well, I know for a fact they're going to be way more flexible than the other ones. The other ones were a considerable effort to wrestle into place. What a treat. Thinking about it, this is the first time I've ever tried to mount brand new tyres. all the years I've had Land Rovers, I've only ever bought second-hand tyres or been given tyres. I suppose my motorbike, they've been new tyres, but it's like doing a bicycle compared to this. Look at that. Honestly, I can't express how easy that was compared to the usual experience. That was so easy. I'm going to carry on actually. I'm going to do a couple more. So it occurs to me that these tyres on these wheels have also been in the sun for a couple of hours. So this is probably as soft as these are going to get. There's the air compressor chundering away, and it's now got an extra long line in it coming all the way up to the generator room. So the big diesel compressor is now powering the blasting cabinet, and it's so much more effective. In here is the spigot bearing. That's got to come out and be replaced. This replacement is sat in here in some engine oil. Now I've just seen a video where someone removed it hydraulically, so I'm going to have a go at that. Now the idea is that you put a load of grease in there and then something that's snug fitting. So this is the closest I could find is this 5/8 socket here from an old socket set. So that's fairly snug in there, and then the idea is that I whack that in and the grease, not having anywhere to go, will pop the bearing out. Let's see if it works. I should add it's in there really tight, so it's not going to come out without some persuasion. My inclination would be to chisel it. So if I could get into the edges and chisel it, I could collapse it down and then extract it. And it might come to that, but I'm going to try this method. This will fire out through there. No, it hasn't shifted in the slightest. I've got knackered wood chisel somewhere here. Got it. Yeah. Turns out it's soft enough to just chisel straight through it. Now the rest of it's loose. Here we go. That's it there, that's what all the fuss is about. What this is for is, if you imagine this to be the gearbox, this input shaft, the very tip of the gearbox sits in there. That one that came out was well worn. Dust everywhere. Not sure that's any better. Yeah, that's the fit we want. Snug as that. A nice sunny day again today, so I've sorted out the other two tyres. Of course, they're going to go on the front. So we're imagining the old Land Rover engine, so the 2¼ diesel or the 2.5 diesel or even the turbo diesel, they all had this block. So on the 200 TDI it's the same block, this part of it, but underneath there's this strengthening section. So when this was attached like this, the gearbox that came off of here, the Range Rover gearbox, had some really long bolts down here. So this one, this one, this one and this one went through the barrel housing of the gearbox, through this housing, and then into this strengthening section here. Now previously when I did a conversion I didn't bother with these bits, and apparently if you don't do something about these bits then you can have a bit of flex on this part of the engine and it will leak from here, from the crankcase oil seal. Now that didn't happen on my previous engine, but possibly only because it seized before it had a chance. I'm going to do it properly on this one. There's also a couple of other bits. So there's this steel dowel here That needs to come out. And I think one of these studs has to move. And then I've got to, down the bottom here, drill and tap for some extra studs. I'm going to offer it up now and just see which of the studs I've got to take. So I've taken out all the loose studs. Yeah, that's the top, isn't it? Ah, there we go. See there, that one's got to come out. Preferably go in that hole. That one there needs to come out. That down next. Now, let's offer it up here again. I'm going to sort out those 4 bolts I've got to go through. This is what I've got. So these are M10 socket head bolts, and I'm going to counterbore these holes so that they go in. I go to 17. So that one had a down in it, I'm going to leave that one. So yes, the 3 holes that we want, so it's that one there, that one there, that one there, and that one there. So the ones I'm going to tap, they're going to be 8.5. So I'll do those first. Okay, that was the easy bit. Set the depth gauge now. Splendid. I'll clear all the chips out and I'll run through again just to see if I can get any more depth out of it. These spiral taps are much easier to start than the usual taps that I used to use, but of course because they got this great big point on them, they won't go to the bottom of the hole. In this case, I don't think that's really much of an issue. What would be nice if I had a bottom tap. Oh, that one might do. a little bit deeper. See, this tap here is a somewhat different shape. It's not a proper bottom tap, but it is cutting a little bit deeper than that spiral tap. So it's worth running through. What I want to do next is install all the studs that are going to be in here, and then I'm going to try it on the gearbox belt housing. Just offer it up and see if it works, because it's going to be much easier to make adjustments now when this is loose. Yeah, so it will go, but it is a tad snug. Roughly 10.5 at the moment. So if I go through with an 11mm drill all the way round, I think that'll be just enough. That's better. Yeah. That's going to snug up perfectly now. That's good. So I can tighten up all these studs next. Good. All the studs installed. So the next challenge is to get this, which is the rear oil seal, into here, into this housing, without destroying the oil seal. It's apparently rather fragile. Although I don't have the correct factory manual for this engine, by searching the Land Rover forums I did find someone had uploaded a picture of the relevant page, and you can see there the installation tool is just a piece of steel bar on that steel disc, and then you just wallop it in. I was going to use this plywood and just cut one or maybe two 5-inch circles out of this. Of course, the trouble is that plywood is quite flexible, so a lot of the hammering force would just be bouncing the plywood instead of putting that into its housing. The plywood would probably work actually, but then I was searching around the workshop a bit and I happened to look down here at this dumbbell. I think this one will do nicely. Made for it. Well, I mean it's not, but it might as well be. There's lots of advice on fitting these oil seals, and much of it's contradictory. So some people say they've got to be fitted dry, and some people say they've got to be fitted either greased or oiled. From what I can tell, on the outside here, this is a type of sealant. And according to the actual official manual, it should be dry on that edge and then oiled on this edge when it goes on there. So this part of the process just goes in dry, and I've taken care to clean the inside of this. Actually, I'll give it a quick wipe. Contamination in there. Goes in there. On top. Now that, I think you'll agree, looks an awful lot like the one that's in the proper manual. Starting here. That's the end of that. That's it. That's properly installed now. It's square all the way around and it's touching the bottom of the housing in here. So that went rather well for an improvised tool. Now the next stage is to get it onto there, obviously. First I've got to fit this gasket. Just using some more meths and clean rag to get rid of any contamination. Right, it goes red side that way. Teflon shield that came with the seal. From what I gather, that goes on there. And then when we offer that up, it's not going to damage the seal. Yep, we're going on. It's happening. There we go. Flywheel housing. Flywheel housing to cylinder block. We're looking at 33 again. And I'll do these to the same. Good. Flywheel next. So I'm going to put these bolts back on, but they're really oily at the moment, so I'll clean those up. All cleaned up. And the flywheel itself, yeah, it's just got some flash resting on, so. The important thing, of course, was to get rid of any oil contamination, which there wasn't really, it was just in that middle bit. Cool. So I'm going to line up with that peg. There he is. Now these bolts have got to have thread lock on as well to stop oil coming through them. So I'm going to put a fairly generous amount on here. 1.7. I'll have to lock the engine for this. Yeah, so that stops it moving this way. Flywheel is on. Next up will be the clutch. It's here. And I believe I've got the heavy duty Series 3 clutch. Pressure plate. A little sachet of grease. There we go. This input shaft from an old knackered gearbox will enable me to perfectly line up the clutch disc there on the flywheel. Right, so that's that middle disc is in the right spot. I've just got to get this to go on. Oh, that looks convincing. I must remember to put this little bag of grease on those splines. I could do it now, couldn't I? I won't forget. Well, next up, I was going to say reuniting the engine and gearbox, but of course this engine and this gearbox have never met before. So this will be a first time mating process. And then I'll bring the chassis into the workshop and drop the whole unit into the chassis. And that will be another big step forward, I think. All coming up in the next episode, because I think this one is quite long enough. So cheers for now, see you next time.